Sirens screamed like metal birds, searchlights ripped through the night, and 7 men ran across the prison yard like shadows breaking free. Their shoes slapped the wet ground. A rope made from torn bedsheets swung from the high wall, snapping in the wind. On the tower, a guard shouted, "Stop!" but the fog swallowed his voice. The men didn't look back. They slipped through a hole cut in the outer fence, crawled under a sagging wire, and burst into the trees. Behind them, red and blue lights flashed, growing brighter, then dimmer, like the night was breathing. A police dog barked. A helicopter thumped over the river. The 7 men splashed into the black water, clothes heavy, hearts louder than the siren. Just as the first light from the helicopter found the ripples on the river, one of the men turned, lifted his hand, and pointed to something none of the others had seen. What he pointed at was floating toward them, silent, long, and dark. Now, let me take you back to how this all began. The prison sat in a flat county in Texas, out by fields and a slow brown river. Everyone called it Red Hollow because the bricks on the walls looked rusty in the sun. The place was old but strong. The yard had tall lights that buzzed at night and went quiet in the day. The fences were like silver nets, doubled and topped with loops of sharp wire. If you lived in the town, you could hear the count time whistle at breakfast, lunch, and dinner, as steady as church bells. Inside Red Hollow, the 7 men did not look like a movie gang. They were regular-sized people with regular-sounding names: Michael, Dean, Curtis, Ray, Todd, Ben, and a quiet man everyone called Jonah. Some were older, some were young, but all were tired of gray. They were tired of the same 4 steps to the bunk, the same clang of doors, the same chalky oatmeal, and the same walls that felt too close and too forever. Jonah was the one who listened more than he talked. He watched and noticed. He noticed how the night shift changed the way the flashlights moved. He noticed that the south camera near the laundry room sometimes blinked twice, then once, like it was hiccuping. He noticed that the fog rolled in heavy on river nights, making the yard look like it had a blanket pulled over it. He noticed, too, that a broken drain by the workshop whistled when the wind came from the west. Michael had a soft voice and big hands. He could fix things: radios, fans, wobbly shelves. Dean told jokes that made the other men forget they were inside, at least for a minute. Curtis could draw. He sketched maps in soap on the shower wall and erased them with his palm. Ray had strong legs and could run forever. Todd remembered every schedule, every time a bell rang, every 10 minutes later in a day. Ben was good at making plans sound simple, even when they weren't. They met in small pieces. A word here, a nod there, a look that lasted 1 second longer than normal. They didn't write anything down. They didn't whisper too close. They did their jobs: kitchen, laundry, grounds, and they kept their heads low. Every night, when the lights clicked off and the soft hum of the building filled the air, Jonah counted heartbeats and thought about the river. One low day came with hot air and heavy sun. The yard was quiet, like even the birds were tired. Dean dropped his spoon at lunch and said, "If I have to eat one more scoop of this mush, I'll turn into a bowl." Everyone laughed, and the laugh felt good, like a window opening. But that afternoon, a shakedown rolled through the block. Officers searched bunks. They lifted mattresses. They shook shoes. They tapped the bars with their batons and told jokes that weren't funny. The 7 didn't look at each other. They looked at the floor. When it was over, nothing was found and everything felt louder. A small high came 2 days later. In the laundry room, where the dryers rattled and the steam made the windows sweat, Michael found a length of wire fallen behind a machine. He didn't smile. He didn't pocket it fast. He just bent down like tying his shoe, slipped the wire into his sock, and kept folding towels. That night he worked the wire in his hands under the blanket, slow and careful, bending it into a hook that could catch a latch. Another high came in the workshop. Curtis got to fix a wooden shelf that had cracked. The guard who watched him liked to talk about baseball more than he liked to watch. Under the shelf, the floor drain with the whistling sound was covered by a rusty grate with 6 screws. Curtis didn't touch it. He only counted. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He counted again later in his head when he lay awake in the dark. 6. The 7 learned the rhythm of the place like a song. Count at 5 o'clock in the morning. Breakfast at 5:30. Work call at 7 o'clock. Lunch at 11:30. Yard at 1 o'clock unless it rained. Count again at 4 o'clock. Dinner at 5 o'clock. Showers. Lights out. Flashlights sweep. Footsteps slow. Radios crackle. Then, the late shift, when people are awake but wish they were asleep. That's when mistakes are made. That's when doors stay open a second too long. That's when someone forgets their coffee on a desk. They did not rush. They were patient, like fishermen on a still lake. When anyone got jumpy, Jonah said, "We don't need fear. We need time." He said it so softly it felt like a secret the room shared with itself. There were days when it felt impossible. A new officer arrived and liked to brag about catching people. A camera got cleaned and stopped blinking. The fog didn't roll in on river nights. The drain whistled less. The men did not push. They waited. In waiting, they became quieter, and in being quieter, they became more certain. One evening something shifted. Todd noticed the schedule had been changed for the library cart because the librarian's car broke down. That meant the hallway by the laundry would be emptier for a stretch. Ben noticed that the tower light on the south wall flickered at the same time every night for almost a minute, like a slow blink. Ray measured the yard in steps and found that from the laundry door to the shadow of the south wall was 93 big steps for him, which meant about 1 minute of running. They put the pieces together without meeting as a group. They spoke in pieces like rain, tap, 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 never a storm, always a drizzle. The low hit the day before they would move. A rumor ran through Red Hollow like a fast cat. A full lockdown might happen because someone hid something in the kitchen. Lockdown meant doors closed, lights bright, and eyes everywhere. The seven said nothing. They waited for the rumor to die or become real. At dinner, the warden walked the aisle with a smile too big. "Everything's fine," he said. "No lockdown." His smile didn't reach his eyes. Jonah saw that and felt his heart fall to his shoes. Night came on green and heavy, with wind from the west and a sky that pressed close. The river would be swollen from last week's rain. The fog would come if the wind slowed. At lights out, Jonah lay on his bunk and listened to the building. He heard the chattering of a TV in a far room. He heard a cough that sounded like a chair scraping. He heard the count. He heard the soft click of the block door closing. He counted to 100. He counted to 100 again. Then he moved. He slipped from his bunk and tapped the bottom of Ben's mattress twice. Signal. Ben rolled quietly, swung his feet to the floor, and stood. One by one, in the dark, the seven moved from their bunks as if the floor were made of eggshells. They didn't speak. They didn't cough. They breathed small. Michael led them to the laundry room, where the machines hummed like sleepy bears. He slid the wire hook from his sock and worked the latch on the service door. Click. The sound was tiny but huge. He eased the door open, and warm air rolled over them. Outside the service door was the corridor that led to the workshop and the whistling drain. Curtis went to his knee at the grate. 6 screws. He had a piece of metal he'd shaped into a flathead, no bigger than a pinky. 1 screw turned. Another stuck. Sweat ran from his hairline into his eyes. He blinked it away and kept turning. The third came easy. 4. 5. The 6th squealed but then gave up, sad and small. He lifted the grate and set it down like a sleeping baby. The hole smelled like damp pennies. Ray lowered himself into the dark and felt with his hands. A tunnel ran under the floor, not big, not safe, but open. He slithered forward like a snake. The others followed, shoulders tight against the earth, elbows scraping. They moved 10 feet, then 20, then found the end, a brick wall that looked old. A square had been cut into it long ago, patched sloppy. Michael pressed the wire hook into the crack and pulled. A chunk broke loose. He pressed again. Another chunk. The hole grew, crumb by crumb, brick dust in their noses, the floor cool under their palms. Jonah listened. Above, a cart rolled by. A radio hissed. A footstep stopped and then moved on. He waited for the right silence, the flat kind that means no one is close, and whispered, "Now." They pushed through the hole and came up under a stairwell in the workshop, where shadows lay thick and sharp. A back door with a faded exit sign waited like a quiet mouth. Todd looked at his watch and nodded once. Ben turned the handle. The door didn't scream. It sighed. Outside, the yard smelled like cut grass and rain. The fog had come, thankful and full. The south tower light flickered, one slow blink. The 7 ran. 93 steps. Breath burning, feet drumming. They didn't look up. They didn't look down. They felt the wall against their left shoulders like a guide. At the fence, Dean and Curtis pulled out the rope made of stitched bedsheets, knotted while the dryers roared to hide the sound. Ray threw it up. It caught. He tugged twice. The knot held. Up, over, down. They crossed one fence, then another, then ducked under coils of wire where the ground dipped. A siren woke, far away but coming closer. A dog barked. A shout rose behind them, thin and scared. They slid into the tree line, branches whipping, leaves slapping, hearts pounding. The river waited like a long road made of water. They hit the bank. Cold seeped through their shoes. The helicopter thumped over the bend, a huge beetle in the sky. "Go," Ben said, voice tiny. They stepped into the river. It grabbed their legs. It tried to pull them like a strong hand. They pushed forward, slow, then faster, the water climbing to their waists, then their ribs. The searchlight slid across the trees, then the bank, then the water. That is when Jonah, knee-deep and shaking, lifted his hand and pointed to the dark shape floating toward them, silent, long, and dark, coming out of the fog like a secret that had been waiting. And before any of them could say a word, the shape bumped the shore and made a hollow wooden sound.